Welcome to the podcast Life After Addiction and Indictment. I'm your host, Steve Cloward, and I spent most of the last decade and well over $100,000 on coaches, consultants, masterminds, and events trying to figure out how to reclaim my life again. On this podcast, I'm going to share the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the hacks that allowed me to forgive myself so that I could reclaim my life again. I'll be interviewing experts in mindset, leadership, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, branding, and so much more. I'm glad you're here. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Let's go! This is Life After Addiction and Indictment.
Welcome back to Life After Addiction and Indictment. Today, we've got a special guest. She overcame a brain injury and started business about 8 years ago, and she is now an incredible entrepreneur doing business internationally. So today, I'd like to welcome to the show Danielle Matthews. How are you today, Danielle?
I'm fantastic, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Appreciate you taking time to do this. Typically I like to just kind of start out and, give us a little bit of maybe how you grew up, really what your backstory is, and then, a little bit about your accident. I guess that was at age 23, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And let's go to that point and then we'll see where to go from there.
Yeah, the journey changes after that. I grew up outside of Annapolis, Maryland, and I have a sister, both my parents. I had a pretty good life growing up. My cousins and aunts and uncles around. I was big into sports. I competed in like everything, swimming.
Well, that's awesome.
All lacrosse. Yeah, I was on varsity teams and, did well in school. I graduated top of my class. I ended up going to University of Virginia.
One of those types, huh?
I was one of those types, for sure. Achiever over here. And
all that.
Yeah, so and UVA, it's a great school. I did well there. I studied biology. I've always been fascinated by how things work. And so I was fascinated with the human body. I thought originally I wanted to go into like medicine. And then I got into it and I was like, oh my God, the medical track is like insane. And I thought, my grandfather was a doctor and he was coming out of the field and he said, Danielle, like it's changed. Insurance has changed that profession. Oh, yeah. So Anyway, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but right out of school, I did Teach for America, which I don't know if you're familiar with that program, but okay, so it's pretty interesting. A woman, I think it was her Harvard thesis for education. The idea was, could we take people that are not like in an education background and put them into low income areas that aren't getting good teachers and just have them teach for 2 years and give some time. And that's, she had the idea and she created it, and it's massive program. I think my year, like 40,000 people applied to it and like 4,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're doing great work. So I got placed, they either do rural or urban settings in low income like situations. And so I got placed in Denver, Colorado, which was like heaven for me.
All the outdoors and all
Oh, I love the outdoors. And I was a snowboarder in college, and like, no joke, it just happened this way. Like 10, 15 of my team members moved out the same time to Colorado, all different jobs. And so, yeah, we were like snowboarding on the weekends, having a blast. And that's the life I was living. Life was good. And I was home for summer break. I had done my 2-year commitment. This was like 2 weeks after, and I'd gone out with a friend the night before for his birthday. I was up early to meet my parents to go to a wedding, just living like life. And this guy was 7 o'clock in the morning. He was drunk, passed out while driving, and came into my lane and just, our cars hit head on, like headlight to headlight. Wow. And yeah, it's interesting because I walked away from the accident, Steve, and like I thought I was fine.
You're kidding.
I looked like this. I looked okay.
No kidding.
Yeah, but I had internal injuries to my brain that weren't picked up for a little while. And I was feeling crazy because I'm like, I couldn't think clearly. I was overwhelmed by light, by noise. Like my personality had changed. But I looked in the mirror and I looked like this. So it was a really bizarre time, up until we got the diagnosis. And then after that, it was a hard road.
Wow. So did you have, you were having headaches, things like that? And
super severe. Yeah, it felt like somebody had like a vice grip on my head. It literally just felt like it was just like this intense pressure, and also like this pulsating feeling. And any sort of input I like couldn't handle. So like natural light, like the best I could describe it is it felt like somebody had a flashlight, and was like shining the flashlight. like right in my eye, and all light felt that overwhelming. And the same with noise. I heard everything at the same level, and it was just like, it was so much. You know, as an athlete, I think you learn to push through things. You learn to kind of drive yourself forward. And so I was doing that. I'm like, you know, I'll get through this, like it'll go away. No, I attempted to go back to work. And I mean, I couldn't remember the name of my kids. I couldn't remember the sentence I had just said. I mean, it was like, it's not good.
So how long after the accident, you know, and then having these types of symptoms till you got diagnosed to what was happening?
It took about a month between, like, I saw my primary care doctor first, and he was like, you need to see a specialist. And it took a little while to get in. So I saw a neurologist about a month after the accident, and he's the one that diagnosed me. They diagnosed it as a mild traumatic brain injury, which feels like a massive oxymoron.
No kidding. It's mild about a brain injury.
Exactly. And I think they said something to that effect in the office, and they said, well, you know, you're not moderate or severe, meaning you don't have a brain bleed and you're not in a coma. And I was like, okay, but I can't function, you know? And they said, well, we try to get people to your state. There's really nothing that we can do. It's just like the body will heal itself. And they said, it should happen within a month to 3 months. And so I thought, okay, like I can deal with it for that long. Like I'll just push through it at work. But
jeez.
Yeah, it did not clear up.
I used to have consistent migraines, and, you know, as I look back on it, you know, after I got sober from being on opiates for 14 years, you know, that was the contributing factor. Why, how, I don't know. But, you know, when those happen, all I wanted to do is be in the darkest room and a cold pillow right in my eyeball, because that'd be right in my eyeball, you know, like you were describing. And it is, I mean, and yours is obviously probably much worse than a migraine, what you were dealing with. And there's like nothing that can help it when it's happening, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And like when you don't have your health, you know, I was 23 years old, and you don't expect to lose your health, you know, and you also don't expect to lose your financial income. I mean, I've always worked hard. Like since the moment I could work, I was working, bought my first car, like all this stuff. And all of a sudden, you know, my job said, well, Danielle, like if you can't perform to the level we need you, like, you know, you're gone. Yeah. And they said, we'll hire you back. You get healthy, but like, we need a teacher. Like, I get it. Like the kids need a teacher. So, yeah, I ended up losing my independence, having to move back in with my parents. And it was just a really wild time, like mentally also, because my whole identity had been wrapped up in Danielle's the top performer. Danielle's the order. Danielle's all these things, you know it.
Oh yeah.
And when that all just like literally came to a crashing halt, it's like, well, who am I if I'm not all these things? And like, what is the point of this life? And what am I
smiling because I mean, this resonates with me because went through the exact same thing. It's crazy how those things we allow to identify us, but that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
It's like, then you're lost.
You're completely lost, you know, because I now, like, thankfully this opened me up because I started asking these questions. You know, I started to find answers in spiritual teachings, not like any religion, but like yogic philosophers. And it had these analogies that just made so much sense to me. Like I had one teacher say, look, it's like there's a pot, like you're gonna like cook something in it. Maybe one night spaghetti, another night, you know, fish, whatever. We as humans, like we identify with the contents of the container. Like we think we are the teacher, we are the friend, we are the daughter. And what she said was, no, we are the container. We're the space with which all of these experiences are meant to move through. And we get into trouble because we identify with them so much and we start to have preference. Well, I like this experience and I don't like that experience. And that's where all the conflict in life comes from. And it's such a profound lesson of like, that's why I have this behind me. It's like the yin yang, because it's like don't have duality. Like don't choose dark or light, just be with both. If you can be with the polarity of life and realize that in the dark times, I think you probably, just from the smile I'm seeing, have experienced this too.
Oh yeah.
The dark times are when you learn about you and you go inward and you get an inner strength and confidence and understanding and knowing. So then when the quote unquote light times come, you can express and you can be a more fuller expression of yourself.
Yeah.
And it all cycles. So that's why that's
I love that. That's cool. Yeah. Well, that is so similar to things that I experienced. And, you know, and as I, you know, went through the things I did and, you know, and took forever to figure out why I was kind of stuck, letting my past get in the way of my future, so to speak, because of not knowing who I was. What am I going to do? Because I'd lost my identities. And it was interesting. And I've said this before, is remember when my dad, he was a very successful dentist and real estate developer. And I remember him saying after he retired, like, he wasn't Dr. Cloward anymore. And so I didn't get it until I went through it, but then it was like, whoa, I get it. It was crazy. And so as you face that, I know what I finally figured out, after finally just being honest with myself, was no one's coming to save me. I needed to do the work. I need to figure out how to basically rewire my mind to get my confidence back, et cetera, et cetera. So what are, as you went through that, what are some of the, I guess, mindfulness techniques, some of the things that you then, use to help you move past, your situation?
I'll be honest, I was in the victim mentality for a long time.
Me too.
That first year, at least, it was like, well, this isn't fair. And why did this happen to me? And I didn't deserve this. And like, me of all people, like all of this egocentric stuff.
Yep.
But the problem was also people around me were validating that. People were saying, you deserve this, and how dare this happen? And this is so unfortunate. And we're sorry for you. And, all this stuff, which I think they thought they were being helpful. But
right.
It's not helpful, because
not
when you're
all.
a victim, the power is over here. It means somebody else has power over you. And so I think of life now, like through an equation. It's like, you've got the external world, which for me at the time, it's like, okay, there was a drunk driver. He hit me. I had a brain injury. Like, we can't unchange this. The external world. Then we have my internal response. That equals the reality. And so my internal response had not been serving me well, because my internal response had been one of frustration, of anger, of resentment, of all of these very low vibrational emotions. And they were just keeping me stuck and trapped. And I was in severe depression. I was having panic attacks on the regular, lots of anxiety any moment I thought about the future, depression when I thought about my past. And so I was forced into the present. And it's like, Steve, it was the best gift I've ever been given in my entire life.
Amen.
Because when you are present, it's like, you realize, oh my God, the past isn't here. Why do I keep bringing it up? Like,
there is no past.
Yeah. And the future, I'm creating it right now. So why do I need to worry about the future? Because if I make sure that right now I'm doing the best I can with everything that I know and taking a step forward, like, I'm going to be fine when the future gets here. And it was wild to just be so forced into the present moment. Cause I literally couldn't plan out my day. I mean, I didn't know how I would be feeling. So it was like, well, the next 10 minutes, let's see what we're going to do. And, it was a gift. And so I started to, in those moments, my internal response started to shift, in that I started to go, okay, well, what would make me happy right now? Like, what could bring me joy right now? And it was simple things. It was like, well, I can go sit out in nature. I can go walk the dog. I started to like draw. Like, I'm like left brain, like scientist lady. I'm like, I never was creative. I let myself cook, like, and try different recipes and just like find space to enjoy these things that life was offering. My grandparents, they didn't mind sitting in a dark room talking with me. I had the most precious time with them.
I'll bet. Yeah, that would have never happened, Isn't that what's crazy? Some of those things, it would have never happened without, like you say, these dark times, these trials, whatever. There's so many gifts in them if we'll just look,
I believe, quite honestly now, the way that I look at it is, I truly believe that challenges are orchestrated by our higher selves, because we're meant to learn certain lessons. And because if life is easy, we're not pushed to figure out what we're capable of, the potential that's sitting untapped within us. Human potential is like the most underutilized resource. We all have a ton of it.
Yep.
It's just, oh, let's make life easy and convenient and whatever. And the moment it gets hard, we freak out. It's like, but it's so silly, because we go to the gym and we work out. We understand, like, the heavier weights make us
Hard
and
things.
it's just like, we missed the day when they taught us, like, oh, the more challenging, the bigger the obstacle, the stronger, the more resilient you get mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
So true.
Yeah.
So I love this, because I've read lot of your stuff, and we'll get into more of it. And I knew there would be many different ways we could go on this podcast. I want to try to maybe hit on several of them, and try to be concise a little bit on my side so that we, have the time, because, as you mentioned,
Course creators, say goodbye to intimidating software and eliminate multiple subscriptions and say hello to Backbone. Backbone helps course creators thrive with their all-in-one, easy-to-use sales and marketing platform. Backbone gives you all your automation in one place to capture, nurture, and turn more leads into customers. With Backbone, you get unlimited courses, membership sites, funnels, landing pages, surveys, and forms with our easy-to-use drag-and-drop features. That's not all. Backbone provides a full CRM and pipeline management, two-way SMS, workflow automations, call tracking, full analytics, built-in AI, 24/7 support, and so much more. Stop paying for multiple tools and put more money in your pocket with Backbone. Just go to backbonelms.io now to get your free 14-day trial. Backbone supports letthemlive.org to help defend the defenseless by donating 5% of each subscription every month. Jump over to backbonelms.io now to start your free trial today.
I've been doing a lot of things I think that you've been through and are currently working on, this inner work and the spirituality. We're at a crazy place in the world today, and we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I love it because the things that you've even said so far are things that 10 years ago would have been, most people wouldn't even resonate at all with it, in a sense. And because the power you talk about that we have as human beings is off the charts, probably even for us to even truly comprehend. It's, not to start the wrong conversation, it's been hidden in many ways from us, and it's been taken from us in many ways. And I think we're at a point where we're awakening, and the abilities we have and that power, we wouldn't be able to figure those things out without, like we've just said, the difficult stuff. And so, I guess why I say all this is, I believe, and I want your take on this, is as spiritual beings, our souls, I think we probably even chose some of these trials and knew them. And because of the growth and that we needed, and we knew that we needed, that, to some this might sound like woo-woo and crazy, but I'm really coming to these type of realizations, that totally go against everything I grew up believing, because I grew up in religion here in Utah. It's just so different, but it totally makes sense to me the more I continue to research and learn about this stuff.
Yes. And I think people that have been through major traumas, major setbacks, intense things, like you, like me, we stop and contemplate. I think otherwise society is moving us forward at such a rapid rate, and we're so inundated with everything. We don't ever stop and pause and reflect and think.
That's it.
Why am I here?
Yes.
And what am I doing, and what is the purpose? And I believe life is constantly, our higher selves, right? That soul, the spirit within us, is constantly trying to help wake you up. And it's like every time that there's a road bump, an obstacle, it's a little hello, pay attention, look over here, you forgot, hey. And if you continue to not listen, it will get louder and louder and louder until something like what happened to me happens, and what happened with you happens, where it's just you hit such a wall that you have to stop. And that ego, because the ego mind, I don't know how much you've dove into this, but it's fascinating. In order to keep this physical body that we have as humans alive, we have to have this ego mind where it remembers things from our past. So we don't have to remember how to walk and talk and eat and all these things every day. We wake up with that knowledge, and our ego is meant to keep us safe. So it keeps us inside of our little box. And the thing is, we're so much more than that, right? That is just an aspect of our humanity. And I've really enjoyed the way, because yogis spent their entire lives studying this. And that's why I'm well, what did they conclude? Because they're, it's well, if there were a single truth that, if known, solved everything, what is that truth? These are the types of things the yogis would contemplate. And they said, well, we found it. And that single truth is that you are more than your thoughts. meaning you're not your ego mind. There is something else
So
there,
true.
a container witnessing it. You're there before the emotion comes, you're there during the emotion, you're there after the emotion leaves. Like, what was that? It's just something unchanged. Like, you're the unchanging thing behind it all. And they then developed tools. You know, that's what meditation is. Like, people miss it all the time. Oh, it's meant to help me like relax and sleep. And no, like meditation was designed as a tool to get you to disidentify.
Yep.
So that you can have space, so that you don't think that you are your thoughts. And all of a sudden you can watch them as if it's like a movie. And then you start to realize, oh my God, I can do that in my day-to-day life. Like, this mind is here and it can be chatty over here, but there's a stronger part of me.
Yeah.
And there's other tools. Like, I've just discovered yoga therapy in the last couple of months. Has blown my mind.
Really?
Well, oh my God, yes. Yeah. These tools and techniques, it's like, you know, they found these simple truths and then they said, well, how can we help? Because everyone, all of us, we're all human. We're all on the same journey of trying to figure this all out, forgetting our true nature. So they said, well, what are techniques that we can help people like literally feel their source nature, like go into the spiritual side of themselves? Meditation takes you there.
Oh, yeah.
Into that. And yoga therapy uses the body to take you there, which is super fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can dive into it a little bit if you want. It's
Go ahead. Let's do it.
So like the idea with yoga therapy, like the yogis say, like, we're all energy, right? And so we had to get into this physical form. And they talk about like 5 bodies of consciousness that slowly condense to get here. They have the bliss body, which is where you go when you meditate. That's the bliss body. It's the closest to, you know, your source nature. Then the wisdom body, which is like where things are housed. It's where the ego starts to get developed. Your intuition is also there. Then you have the mental body, which is what takes in all the senses. Then you have the energy body, which, if you think about, people talk about the chakra system a lot. I don't know if people really understand, but that's basically like the energy of what the yogis call source. It's how it hooks into this being and gives the physical body life. So it hooks in through these different units. And then you have the physical body. And so what the yogis say is like, okay, so this vessel that we have, it's experiencing all these things. And sometimes there's something too shocking to the nervous system, like my accident, or things that you've been through and others have been through, and you shut it down. So what was supposed to just flow through the system like a tube, it gets stopped. And the energy of that experience, even if we push it down, it didn't go anywhere. It just is like we put it in the closet and it's growing. And what they say is the energy starts to fold in on itself and will literally manifest somewhere in the physical body. And it's super interesting, like the correlation between disease, and you know, this stuff. And it's like, wow, when you start to really dive into this, it opens up a lot. But so they say, look, this is what I love about it. We don't need to talk through it. We don't need to talk about what happened, why it happened, how you felt, nothing. We just need to find where's the block in the body.
Yeah.
And the body talks through sensation. So the body's like, where do you have discomfort? And so in yoga therapy, they just say, go to that discomfort, and you have a facilitator and they kind of walk you through. And it's amazing because that discomfort, when you allow it to be, and the language is beautiful of like creating space for it, you know, resting with it, witnessing it, it will start to move and it eventually releases. And it can release in like a jolt. I mean, when I had a wild experience, like energy took over my body for like 45 minutes. I mean, I was
really,
like, oh my God. I was like, what just happened? But it makes sense. Like the energy body, it knows how to heal. The problem in our day and age is that we use up our life force energy in our mind because we're thinking and we're worrying and we're anxious and all this stuff. And that life force is supposed to be clearing out these blocks for us.
Yeah.
But when we're not allowing it, these blocks get big. Well, the moment you allow it, where you turn the mind off, right? So you say, mind, you come over here and sit to the side. The energy body can get, now it's not being controlled by the mind anymore. It's not getting used up there. It's free now to move through the body and it knows what to do.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
No, I love this kind of stuff because I've been really deep on this stuff and it's fascinating. And like you say, you know, the power of the mind is really incomprehensible in a way, you know, and as you've gone through the things you have, you obviously have done the work and figured a lot of this stuff out. You've got a great book out there. What is it? What was it called? What's your book called? Mind Control, is it?
Yeah, mind control. It's all in your head. Yep.
Yeah. So from a standpoint of, what most of my audience are people that are, struggling or are letting their past get in their way of their futures, or maybe they're just kind of coming out of that and looking to, chase their dream finally, from a standpoint of entrepreneurship. You obviously, for the last 8 years, have been building a business and doing incredibly well. And so all this stuff really relates, even though it may not seem like it to those listening to this point. There's some of the things we talked about, but it is so intertwined because, like we say, the mind, that's what was holding me back for flipping 8 years. I had been very successful. And so I just thought, hey, everything just going to be this, I was going to get there overnight, which didn't happen the first time overnight, but I seemed to think that, And so until I owned the fact that I was being a victim, that no one was coming to save me. And I started to truly rewire my mind, frankly, and pay attention to those thoughts that were coming and, and catching them and trying to basically started telling myself different things every day, every morning.
Yes.
Then, things started to change. So let's talk about that, from the mind control and kind of what you experienced and how that affected your ability to change after obviously you had to, go through some medical treatments or whatever they did, but really what did you do or what did you learn that helped you not only control your mind, but to heal yourself?
It was so much of what we've spoken about was these like realizations, like understanding the power of who I really am and what's within me, and also understanding the role of my thoughts, when they were helpful and when they weren't. So I started to see, I always say this, your triggers are your teachers. So I started to watch, like it happened first, I was watching other people because I had nothing else to do, right? So I'm like watching my family, friends, and I was seeing people seem like on this like loop behavior where I could almost like foresee how they would interact with the situation before they even did, how there was going to be a conflict before there was one, because it was as if people had sunglasses on and they were viewing everything through this lens that was not accurate. It was not actually what was in front of them. Wow. And it was like the lens of feeling like, well, my voice is never heard, or, I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy, or whatever, everyone stuff. And then I realized, oh, Danielle, you're not immune to this. Got this too. And so I started to just get really reflective. And this is when we say inner work, this is the work. And it is uncomfortable because you're having to look at aspects of yourself that like I talked about duality before, where we would rather not like talk about that aspect of us, but it's like, once you bring it in and you accept it and you say, okay, well, why are you here? And you can use things to release it, right? Meditation, yoga therapy, stuff I've been talking about, this is all tools that help release these things so that you're not clouded anymore. Yeah. And life is constantly giving you lessons. It's constantly giving you opportunities. Every time you get triggered, hear me clearly, it's not because of what was out there. It was because something within you, something hit up against something in you that didn't feel good. Now, it felt like it was that thing because that's what showed up to reveal it to you, but it's not that thing. Like, this is where the inner work happens. You go, why am I reacting that way? I would just like witness myself. I'd get really angry at something. I'm like, why am I mad? Like, what is this? And I'd start to reflect and I realized the sunglasses I was wearing. And I will tell you that one skill has meant everything for me in my business, because once I started to understand myself, I was like, this is just the human condition. Everybody has sunglasses on. And so I'm in sales. What do I constantly get? Objections.
Yeah.
And so what is that? It's just sunglasses. It's just, there's some past experience that is clouding them from seeing what I'm showing them. I work with one of the greatest breakthroughs. Right. It changed my life. I'm like, okay, what are they not seeing? So I just have gotten very good at asking questions, trying to help get the sunglasses off. It's the same with coaching people. Like, I coach a team from all over, all different ethnicities. Like, we're all the same humans. We all got the same, like, it's all the same stuff. I don't care where you come. And so I have to do the same thing, which can be difficult because I trigger people. Because I'm like, look at your stuff. This isn't me.
Yeah.
Nothing here. It's you. Like, and now's the chance to work on it. Like, what an opportunity. And I think more people need to understand this dynamic that's happening within us, so you can better understand yourself. And then you're going to have a much easier time in life, because now life like have you going all over the place. You're steady. And you're like, oh, interesting. Why am I acting like that? Well, I'll deal with that later. Like the present situation.
Well, that's great. And that's so true. It's funny. I mentioned to you, I have another podcast, and I got an email this morning early that's, someone had commented, and the comments were just some negative stuff about how I should do things and stuff, and my old self, first of all, would have got mad and, reacted and probably responded in a similar way, which would have just showed my problems and flaws. But, it was interesting because I just ended up ignoring it, but I still wanted to really point out what you just said, but then I was like, it's really not my place. And I don't know, it's still hard but at the same time, the feelings I was fighting, honestly, from not doing it, that held me back from doing it was, I'm just going to come across like I'm a know-it-all. Right. And so anyway, I didn't, but my thought was this guy is he's complaining that I didn't get to the point he was interested in, and talked about so many other things. So I had to wait 30 minutes till I addressed his, what he was interested in hearing. It's like, dude, you should just go ask yourself, why are you responding this way? And that is tough. But that's like what you just explained you did. And that's exactly what when you're sitting in prison, it doesn't take very many days for that to start just happening. When you're just struggling mentally and know that you cannot help your family. And, as a person that's been an entrepreneur and a problem solver his whole life, all of a sudden I have something totally out of my control, exactly. Because the positive things I learned were truly that, there was many gifts and it allowed other people to be able to help out in ways that they would have never been able to from my, regarding my family and stuff, and me, frankly. In fact, a lady sent me a book, and earlier you mentioned basically almost exactly what the title was. In a sense, it was thoughts are things, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just things. But yet we get so caught up in them and put so much weight on them. And then, if you grab onto some, and that's really what I was doing, is building on the story of the thoughts I had and just building these crazy, darker stories and just put you in a worse place, and meditation is so underutilized, and I do it, but I struggle like crazy. And that's because of stories I do have. But if you don't keep sticking with something, it doesn't matter if it's meditation, business, anything, you're not going to ever achieve the results you're looking for if you're not willing to push through, and you basically give up. And, obviously I know that you're far from that type of person. You've obviously proved it with what you're doing, but, until you have that self love, I guess that's what I, lacked after I came out of there. It was like, I was looking for all these different ways to be validated, and like you said, you were a victim. Other people were saying comments that made it okay to be that way. I mean, that happened with me in my addiction big time, that I was scared straight basically. And then a doctor basically said to my gastroenterologist, well, I can't see him for X number of days. So give him, this is before I even knew what 𝐒𝐭𝐞 was as a drug addict, even, because they were pretty new. He said, well, give him these 8 𝐂𝐿𝐴. That'll tide him over till the 3 days till I can meet him. And so here I went from scared straight to now thinking, oh, well, I really do need this stuff. Right. And so that validated in a way that, like you were saying, being a victim, we're both being validated by others, by things we were hearing from them. But, that inner work is really the key to growth, number one, but also to becoming who you want to be, until you decide what it is you want and you become intentional about it, you don't have a prayer, you really don't. But if you do that,
And it's interesting, like the guy that commented on you, I get comments too. Like I had, oh, you should wear more makeup. I'm like,
Yeah. It's just crazy things.
that's not authentically me. And just like people put stuff out there and we could get triggered, but I always go, well, why am I having the reaction I'm having, right? This is a lesson, what's within me that's getting triggered by this. But then I think, you know what? It's not my job to go out there and tell people you should be this way, you should be that way. Right. Live by example. And I think that's where it's like, it's
such a great,
what I've learned in business is like, the more I work on myself, the stronger I get in myself, the more solid I am in myself. I'm not like hit by all the like ups and downs that come in business, because it ebbs and flows, and people are people business. So I'm dealing with people, which is crazy town, because you're dealing with all this stuff. And I just stay steady. And it's like the steadier I become, people are looking for leadership. They're looking for someone that can keep calm in the storm, because they're so overtaken by their own minds. They're like, oh my God, how are you doing what you're doing? Teach me what you know. And I've just found I attract in differently too. Like I attract in now people that are steadier. So like I'm attracting in leaders now into my organization that have done this inner work too. And it's really fascinating that like, you want to change the world. And they say, like Connie says, be the change. It hit me the other day, like be, like literally, not like go by doing it, like be the change. You do the work yourself and you exist in that energy space, it will shift so many things. And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. And that's been a huge secret to success in my business. I always say business is like a spiritual playground. You get to apply all the things that you're learning. And it's like, oh, here's the opportunity to not just like know it on the intellectual level, but to like actually live it. And then there's a knowing in you that's totally different. And it's, I
think that is such a powerful thing right there that most people probably don't even think about, is because as you started to be, the leader, the person that you wanted to, not only you to be, but the type of people you want to associate with and attract, then that shift that we don't really pay attention to or realize that is the way it works, is that whole energy, that vibration. And that's what then is attracting those people. I mean, I've seen it in my business. I've seen it just from things I practiced and thoughts I've, had consistently, and how all of a sudden, whoa, how did they contact me, or how did this all of a sudden that I wanted to happen in my life, it's now happening, And so that's what, like, when I say be intentional, I so often we just are so caught up in the rat race, that we're just trying to survive, or we're just, going through the motions. And like you said early on, we don't stop and think. And so as an entrepreneur, or really in anything in your life, whether it's relationships, health, it doesn't matter. If you're not going to really be intentional about it, think about it and decide what you want, you're very rarely going to get it. But if you do that, it just seems like, like you said, those things just start to manifest and happen,
There's so much, like, I didn't understand the law of vibration, which is what you're touching on. It's like I think the law of attraction is talked about. Everybody gets it. You can attract in things, but it's like, that's secondary. Primary is the law of vibration, saying like attracts like. And so the energy that you hold, the emotional state, that vibrational state makes a big difference. And it was interesting because for me, after 1 year into my accident, my doctors told me this was my new normal. And they said to me, you just need to adjust your life around this. You've done all the healing you're going to do.
That's so crazy.
And I was like, you're fired.
And how were you at that point when they were telling you that? What were you still dealing with?
Oh, everything. I was still unable to work, unable to focus, severe migraines, like nothing had gotten better. It was just a year of having dealt with that. And I'm like, how can you tell a 24-year-old that?
Nuts.
There's no way. And so I was convinced I would find something that would help me to heal myself, because I'm like, the body wants to be in homeostasis. Like, I know this from my schooling, like it's trying to repair.
Yeah.
But not able to, and I don't know why. So, but I realized I had to get my mental, emotional space under control. And that's when I started sunglasses thing. It became evident, the whole equation of like, well, Danielle, you can choose a different way to interact, it'll shift your reality. And I started to shift my vibrational state where because I was so present, and because I was just seeking, well, what would make me happy now? What would bring me joy? I shifted my vibration. And I kid you not, we got a phone call from an acupuncturist that knew my mom and had worked with her. And she said, I've come across a breakthrough and I can't help but think it could help Danielle. And it's like the answer got attracted in to my physical issues. And I didn't know, like I was unconsciously competent, right? I didn't know what I was doing, but now I look back and I go, this stuff is so real.
Yep.
You have to embody it. It's not a knowing. It is like being in the energy of gratitude, which I found that space within my injury. And that was like the antidote was in the obstacle. Like once I did that, it was like, okay, now the injury can go away because you learned the lesson you were supposed to learn.
Yeah. That's so it's amazing. But yeah, until, I remember, when The Secret came out and Law of Attraction and all that, I did buy into it, but not at the level you need to understand for it really to work. You can have your vision board or you can think certain things, but, if you have to go to a deeper level, you have to, really feel, and get yourself, like you say, in that vibrational space, for the universe then to work and to move in the ways that it did with bringing that, person to call you up, your mom out of the blue, and those are just not accidents,
No, they're not.
And when you experience and start to realize that stuff, you can transform your whole entire life in every area of your life, it's fascinating stuff. So well, let's talk about your business and what you're doing and how you got involved in that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And before I go there was something that popped in my head that I want to say, your reticular activator system in your brain, like being intentional, you're telling your mind what to think about. And we take in so much input that, there's a piece of our mind, the reticular activator, that says, this is relevant, send it to the conscious mind. This is not, put it aside. When you go to buy a car, I think this is the example everybody uses, but you start to see that car everywhere. I have a Jeep. I now see Jeep everywhere. So because my brain was like, oh, she thinks this is important. Let me keep giving it to her. So I was convinced I would heal. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there with chronic issues. Hear me now.
Yep.
If you have taken in, I will never get better from this. This is permanent. Your reticular activator system is literally going to siphon off any possible things that could help you. But if you have the intention, I will heal, you will start to, what did I hear on the radio? What did that podcast guy just say? Rewind it. Let me hear that again. What the person at that table just say? Like your brain will start to bring you, hey, is this the solution? Hey, is this the solution? And it's wild. I say that because I almost missed this. My mom was like totally on board. She intuitively was like, Danielle, this is the answer we've been looking for. And I'm like, Mom, it's BS. Like, something called shock signaling. I said, I never heard about this. I got a degree in biology. They didn't teach me this in school. Like, what are you talking about? This is a scam, one of these things.
Interesting.
Yeah, I totally blew it off. It is. And I thank God for my parents, because 6 months on, they were both using this technology. It's a liquid you drink. And they said, Danielle, and I watched it change their health. My dog. Sorry about that.
No problem.
But I watched it change their health, and they said to me, Danielle, this can't hurt you. It might help you. Why don't you use it? And I thought, okay, like, fine. I think it's BS, but fine, and it changed my world. Wow. And I just, like, so many people miss things in life. Like, the answers are there. They're sitting right here. Yeah. And it's just, you have to ask for it, and then it'll ping in. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Oh, that's awesome, because it's so true. I mean,
yeah. And go ahead.
No, I say, and you were pushing back just because of beliefs that you had, which you don't even know they're true, frankly. I mean, beliefs are just beliefs created by the experience and things we've been exposed to, And so once again, that goes back to the very beginning. Stop and think, and the key question in that situation is, what have you got to lose?
And that's what my parents kept saying.
Be that simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, you have everything to gain here and nothing to lose. Why not? And I went,
bingo.
It's valid logic. Like, okay. So
you give in.
And this set the stage for everything, because I truly believed inserting this into my regimen. I didn't change anything else, right? The biologist in me is like, we're keeping it all the same. 3 months in, it wasn't immediate, but 3 months in, the pounding that had been relentless now, we're 2 years from my accident. stopped.
Jeez.
And
Wow.
it has never come back. I started to be able to concentrate again. I started to be able to get the words out I wanted to, when I wanted to. I had energy. I wasn't having to nap. I mean, it was phenomenal. I was still
Unreal.
sensitive to noise and light. You know, those things took more time, but they also went away eventually. But I'll never forget going to my cognitive therapist and her saying to me, Danielle, I've worked with your type of injury for 30 years.
Yeah,
She said,
nothing's going to change.
yeah, she said, I've never seen such a rapid recovery so far out from an initial trauma. She said, it just doesn't happen. What the hell is that stuff that you started drinking? And that question was a catalyst for me because I said, I don't know. I don't really understand it. And she said, well, we need to learn because my other clients need to know about it. So we started to learn. And I started to, it's a company called ASEA. I started to learn about how they came into existence, that a pharmaceutical company had wanted to purchase these patents for this and, you know, shelve it.
Yeah, wonder
Started to
why.
understand, yeah, that my story wasn't unique, that they were seeing things with any cell in the body. We're talking hormone stuff, digestive stuff, doesn't matter what the cell.
Unreal.
And the biologist in me was like, look at the potential, like, what is the possibility of this? And, you know, then it turned out they were doing it through network marketing, which I know you're in the mecca of this space. I actually had a really bad taste in my mouth about network
A
marketing.
lot of people do. Most people do, frankly, even though it's a brilliant business model, if you just strip it down to that word of mouth piece, you know.
But it's all people. And as we know, people mess a lot of things up.
Exactly. Everyone thinks it's get rich quick and they represent it wrong. And there's no such thing. It's just, but anyway, I'm excited to hear this because there's nothing better in that industry than somebody that has had an experience like you, because the passion you can speak of it is a winning ticket.
Exactly.
You know?
And I didn't know this, right? I was saying to my mom, because you come out on the other end of something like this, much like you, I assume, and what am I going to do with my life now?
Yeah.
You know, who do I want to be? How do I want to spend my day? Because tomorrow's not guaranteed. You know, what's it going to look like? And for me, it was financial security. I was really freaked out about the fact that because I lost my health, I couldn't earn money, because my whole life, you worked and you earned X amount. I was always in a job. I didn't understand how you could create a passive income or residual income or another way where if your health disappears, you can still get paid. So I kept saying to my parents, that's what I want. And my mom, again, she saw it before I did. She said, Danielle, ASEA. And I'm like, no, that's like sleazy. Like, I'm not doing that.
Were your parents involved at the business side or just customers?
Well, they had been, when it started to shift me, and it had shifted my mom's health so much. My mom had owned a yoga studio.
Okay.
Trained yoga teachers, and she partnered with the local college, and she was really into that scene. And so she said, well, I have to tell my students about this. Like, they're all always seeking things. So she started to share, not with any mentorship, like she did it completely wrong, you know, all of that stuff. But she saw enough of it to say, Danielle, I think you could create what you're wanting here. Flexibility, you're going to have purpose, you're going to make an impact. And she said, you used to be a teacher, you have a degree in biology, and you have a powerful experience. She said, that's all you need.
Hell of a resume for that business.
Yeah. And so she took me to an event. You know, I went kicking and screaming. Like, she literally she said, Danielle, I was helping them move. They're moving out to Arizona. And she said, there's an event on the way. It happens the same time. And just come. And I was like, Mom, I'll come to one of these things. And then just like, we got to drop this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had goosebumps, Steve, from head to toe for 8 hours sitting in that conference. I was listening to the founder speak, and I just thought, he had this book, and I've got it here. It's a Leo Tolstoy story. And he spent an hour speaking about this. And this is what got me in, because it's called 3 questions. It's exactly what we've been talking about. It's this little boy asking, when's the best time to do things? Who's the most important one? What's the right thing to do? And it's all about be present, serve the person in front of you, do what's right for them. And he said, that's how we run this business. He said, network marketing has done it wrong for a long time. He said, we're bringing soul to this. We're bringing the human element to this. And if that resonates with you, we want you. If you're interested in your own ego and money, buy. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. And so I moved to Florida right after that. I didn't know a soul, and I didn't know anything about network marketing, but I saw the possibility, right? And I said, this is what I'm meant to do. I had a burning desire in me, and I said, I'll figure it out. I literally had to Google networking. I went to my first networking event. I was completely overwhelmed. I got blown off by the massage therapist. Like, there was all this stuff happening. The first chamber of commerce I went to in my area said, oh, we don't do those types of businesses. You can't be part of this. And I was like,
so pathetic.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It was just like doors were, shutting, but I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out. Like I persisted and insisted that it was going to work.
Yeah.
And, I learned how to network. I learned how to connect with people, and it started in my local community. And then it just grew,
That's awesome.
and it's been amazing. The growth that's happened myself, cause I'm one of these people, I would shake like after a networking meeting. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so important. Like,
So, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It's a lot. And now to be able to jump on here and, talk and speak and share, it's amazing the growth that happens
That's what's cool that I've seen, in a few companies I've been around, is typically you do see a lot of personal growth, that's part of it. And the thing that's really nuts that a lot of people might not even have a clue about this, some of your very, very best products that you'll never find anywhere, but you'll find them in network marketing companies. I mean, I have a buddy locally, he's a 6-figure a month guy in a company that's been with for like 18 years now, because of the specific, flagship product they have that made such an impact on him and some of his loved ones, and when it doesn't matter if it's this industry or anything, if you have that passion tied to it, that's the game changer.
It is. I tell people all the time, my team always says, well, how do I convince so-and-so to do this? And I'm like,
you don't.
I said, you need to be convicted. If you are convicted in
Bingo.
knowing what you know and being proud of what you have, like that will draw people in. The moment you try to convince somebody, that energy you're going to push them away.
Yeah.
And I think it's true in this business and any business, and I'm so grateful for the industry, because it's like your business will reflect your own personal growth. If you don't grow, it won't grow. And so now, like, if something were to happen, I have this skill set that I've developed here that will serve me wherever I go. Whatever I want to do. I hope and intend for this to be here for forever and be a piece of what I do, but it's like, you can't go wrong with it. Like, there's no downside. Maybe you earn money, but you become a better version of yourself. Okay. It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you're in, business wise, job wise, whatever. If you want to do better, make more, get promotions, you better learn that everything comes down to learning how to deal with people and relationships. That's the bottom line.
Yep. And then adding value. Like, I think you're valued in life, you give value. Yeah. And so you've got to constantly be working on yourself. Like, recently I'm studying AI, because I'm like, AI is going to change the game in business. So it's like, well, how can I leverage this to, accelerate my business, to help my team members? Like, I'm blown away by, what's out there that can help all of us just become, like, you get time back in your day. That's how I'm looking at it. It can accomplish tasks for me that maybe used to take an hour. It does it in like 30 seconds. So, there's always development, and I hope people just like, this is what this life is all about. Your soul came here for a learning journey. So stop taking it so seriously. Have fun. Like, this is the playground. This is where we get to learn the stuff, and don't take it so seriously, and it'll feel better.
Well, that's a great way to end it right there, because that is it. I mean, we get so caught up and so, we let the thoughts take over and control us, and, we just dig in and do the things that, you've shared today and experienced in your life. It can make such a big difference to anybody. So really, thank you for being here. This has been great, and I appreciate everything you've shared, and certainly appreciate your time today. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It was a blast talking with you.
You bet. Last thing before we wrap it up is, where can people find y'all? Of course, Paul put all this in the show notes as well. But how can people find you and connect with you?
I would say Instagram, probably the best platform to connect with me. It's just my name, Danielle Matthews, and I've got an underscore on either side, because apparently there's other Danielle Matthews out there. And then if you want the book, we'll put a link to it. It's just my website, Brain Body Self.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. In fact, I got it before we started, so I'll dig into it. It's cool. Well, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks again. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
You bet. Thank you.